The Cricket World Cup is bearing the business end of the tournament with only 2 rounds left in the round-robin stages before the semi-finals. To help us talk about this and all the action happening out in India, we've roped in a man who has worn many hats in the sport of cricket and is currently the Lions Cricket CEO. It is Jono Leaf Wright. Good morning, Jono. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports on Morning Live.
Good morning, V. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about the World Cup out in India, because when you look at it, I would say that this Proteas side has moved like the G in lasagna, silently, but being able to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fantastic Springboks in France have distracted South Africa away from the Proteas, which in a way has been a good thing. And now the spotlight's on them. And I was in India last week, and there's a real buzz amongst the team. They've got a real deep sense of belief in them that they can lift this trophy later this month, and hopefully we'll have another trophy tour in the week of the 20th of November after they lift the World Cup trophy.
We as South Africans claim it all the way because we're absolutely loving the cheers that we're seeing from the Springboks. But overall, Jono, you were out in India for the past encounter that the Proteas played. What do you make of the mood and feel around India with this particular World Cup?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, everywhere you look in India, it's just cricket everywhere. I mean, they've got 3 billion people now that love the game. And if you look at the stadiums, even when India's not playing, they're relatively full. I mean, the match against South Africa, Pakistan in Chennai that I was at had 28,000 people. And some of the stadiums, obviously, in India are huge. The final will be played at a stadium that's got a capacity of 120,000 people. So it puts it into context. And sometimes you see these gaps in these bigger Indian stadiums and people think it's not well supported. But the DP World Wanderers has a max capacity of 30,000. That's our biggest cricket stadium in the country. So really a great buzz in India. I got to spend some time with the players, and they really are in a good space. And I'm excited. And I'm so glad walking into these SABC studios. I'm seeing everyone in Protea shirts. And I know after this Book Trophy tour this week, there'll be even more momentum shifted and focus shifted to the Proteas, which they so deserve.
We're very patriotic here on Morning Live. Let's talk about that Pakistan encounter, because I saw it and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is a repetition of the Springboks. We are leaving it right to the last ball almost. And you look at a Keshav and a Shamsi having to really step up in the dying minutes of that encounter.
Yeah, I think our national teams this year have really tried to test our hearts as South Africans. We had the Nepal World Cup, we had Banyana, we now have the Springboks, and now we've got the Proteas that want to leave it to the dying seconds to win a match against Pakistan. And I was there, and it was I mean, I've watched a lot of live cricket, and that by far was the most tense I've been in a match, and having Keshav, Maharaj and Shamsi out there trying to get those last couple of runs, and I had these Indians screaming at me from both sides, and I was shouting South Africa, and it was a crazy time, but so good when Kesh played that little shot and it went over the boundary ropes.
And we could breathe easy finally as South Africa.
Absolutely.
But let's talk also about how we've seen the likes of a Klassen being able to step up at international level, and seeing players who are able to hit the big runs at franchise level, get into the international stage and be able to perform. Yeah,
I think our domestic game in the country is in a strong place. We've got a very strong pipeline. Many of the players that we see representing today have been in our system from 14, 15 years old and have made their way through. And we've got a really strong coaching structure with Rob Walter hitting the white ball side, Captain Temba Bavuma, the environment, the Director of Cricket, Enoch Nkwe, and I think from everyone within the South African cricketing ecosystem, whether it's at affiliate level, at national level, Cricket South Africa and other, we're all aligned to a common vision, and that's to have a very strong women's and men's Proteas side. Our women did fantastically well earlier this year, playing in the final at the T20 World Cup, and hopefully the men can go one step further and lift the actual trophy. But South African cricket's in a good place. It's in a stable place, and I'm very excited for the future of it because of what's coming through. And many of these players that we get to celebrate today, as I say, they see them now on the global stage, but they've been in the system for 15, 20 years, many of them, and they understand the South African way of playing.
And you speak about them being in the system for 15, 20 years, and you almost having just like a career plan for them. You were part of the team that discovered the likes of Kagiso Rabada, Quinton de Kock. Speak to me about how that's been for you, being able to identify this talent at a young age, see them through franchise level, and now seeing them out in the national team?
Yeah, before I took this role as chief exec at the back end of 2019, I was the national talent scout for Cricket South Africa in the under-19 program for 11 years. And many of these players that are playing at franchise level today for the DP World Lions and some of the other franchises around the country, and the likes of Temba Bavuma, Rabada, Quinton, came through those Cricket South Africa Talent Acceleration Program. Remember, people say South African cricket hasn't won a World Cup. We won the 2014 Under-19 World Cup. Who was the captain? It was Aiden Markram. Who was the best bowler in the world? Took 4 wickets against Australia at the time, Gugisa Rabada. So many of these players have come through the system, and we discovered them when they were 14, 15 years old, and has made sure that we've had a real pathway plan for them as they've walked the journey and through the pipeline system of South African cricket. South African cricket have very strong programs, and very strong programs that we are seeing the fruits of today, and we get to celebrate today, which certainly for us, having been in multiple, as you say, wearing different hats in the ecosystem, it's really rewarding and makes my heart really full to see what's being done in India.
Speaking of the fruits of what's coming out of South Africa's cricket, I want us to look forward to now the encounter on Sunday where we take on India at home. How do you see that game playing out? Because we look at this Indian side, they're yet to lose a game in this World Cup. We've done very well. I mean, only losing to Netherlands, which was a shock loss for a lot of us. But how do you see that one playing out on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting match. Certainly, they're the two best sides of the World Cup. It almost takes me back to a round-robin game between South Africa and Ireland in the Springboks. And certainly, I think whoever wins will end up top and whoever loses will come second. And I think really it's about who do you want to play in that semi-final. And that will really be the strategy that South Africa goes into at this World Cup. Do they play some of their fringe players that haven't had a chance against this Indian side and say, you know what, we're happy with second? Or do they now want first place so they can almost dictate who they play in fourth place? And that will either be Pakistan, Australia or New Zealand. And I think the strategy around who they want to play may determine how they approach this match on Sunday. I believe they'll beat India. I believe they'll beat Afghanistan. And then we got two more, the semi and the final.
And then we'll lift the trophy.
And we'll be doing all this again. And I'll see SABC having the fans in the corner with the bus parade visiting the cities.
Indeed, because we as Morning Live love supporting our national teams, and we'll do exactly the same with the Proteas. Jono, absolutely lovely having you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. And South Africa, let's get behind the Proteas.
Yes, let's get behind the Proteas, that Protea fire.